Hello everyone, my name's David Hood. I'm a one-time or sometime microbiologist and life scientist and now a professional marketer. And this particular discussion or talk is looking at my personal quest as to how this marketer became a marketer and found things a little bit more challenging than he anticipated. Now, this is me back in the day, the early 80s I think that is, and if you're in any doubt, that's me at the top, the one with the hirsute face. And down there I've got some horrible bacteria, which were the kind of things that I was dealing with at that time. And in those days it was very simple. We did have quite a simple life. We were just dealing with organisms all day and patients were receiving the benefits of that. And again, we had what I consider to be quite a rigorous science, a belief system, if you like, whereby we had a number of different equations of a day. We had, as you can see there, we've had velocity equals distance over time. We had the dreaded Pythagoras, which has scared every school child around the globe. We had Ohm's law, we had E equals mc squared, we had the formula for the nucleotides that make up DNA. So we had all this kind of robustness, and it was kind of enjoyable, and it was good fun learning all about that and applying it. And again, we had a shared purpose. We were looking after people, we were looking after billions of bacteria, you could add, but we certainly had a shared purpose. We were there for medical purposes. We were looking after patients and patients' health. And then I moved into marketing. I mean, that's a huge big jump forward a few years, right over through to the 90s, early 90s. But this is what I thought marketing was all about. Now, this image here is Legoland, which is all nice and sweet. And this is what I kind of thought markets looked like. And but I was in for a bit of a wake-up call, it must be said. I thought that goods and services were exchanged for money, and by and large they are, and that's what markets are all about. And I thought that expertise and effort equated to value. Again, very simple. And it was authentic. That's where people did business and everybody enjoyed themselves. So I thought, here we go, this is going to be really interesting. And it looked incredibly complex as well from an interest perspective. We had matrices, as us marketers always like. We had Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so I was trying to look at fulfilling some greater purpose. And within marketing, there seemed to be an awful lot of strands that were interesting and holding certainly the attention of this guy who liked a bit of science. And on top of it all, I thought it was kind of easy that profit equals revenue minus costs. So I was kind of looking at marketing in a very simple way. But I did find pretty quickly that we didn't have a shared purpose, whether it was myself and my colleagues, or ourselves and my colleagues, or it was ourselves in the marketplace, or it was partners or customers, prospects, etc. We didn't really have a shared sense of purpose. And I found very quickly, and it was almost in hindsight, because this has taken me a wee while to realize, because it frustrated me for some time, that the market wants better. They always want more, they want better, they want things more convenient for them, they want things to meet their needs and wants. But I found that the company, whatever company that was I was with, whether I was an employee as a marketer or indeed advising companies, I found that companies by and large want to provide less because they want to cut costs, they want to make life easier for them, they have perhaps more customers they want to look after, and you know the old script with all the attention that's given to new customers and not so much given to existing customers. So I found that was a bit of a conflict. And this is what I found. It wasn't Legoland. It wasn't the high calling that I thought it was. And as the images say, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And effectively, that's what marketing was. I went along to a day release at night school at the University of West of Scotland, and I found out that marketing was literally that. And indeed, that's what it always was in terms of modern marketing from certainly the 60s, 70s onwards. And I had my illusions were shattered somewhat. And the career path for me wasn't this higher purpose. It was to try and be the best BS expert and be like the Mad Men from the television series. And I also found it was all about persuasion and not about purpose. Now, okay, I don't mind the fact that marketing with its associated strands, advertising, promotion, sales, etc., which tend to be a bit confused, it must be said. I did think that there was going to be a purpose in all this. And I went back to original definitions of marketing, which we'll come on to in a second. But I did find it was lacking this purpose that I had certainly found in a previous life. And I found it was full of those kind of run it up the flagpole, see how it flies, and all that kind of David Brentisms from the office, and all this stuff about branding, projecting, share of mind, blah, 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 and BS. And that all equated to whatever the heck we can get away with and swamp everyone with noise. So you could see I was getting a little bit cynical by then. And that, as I said, that was towards the late 90s. And I found that effectively we were talking about how many different ways we could seduce people and annoy them rather than doing anything else for them. So this picture again of this lovely, quaint marketplace was dutifully shattered. And when I found that certainly we were just shouting at people rather than doing anything else. And the companies on the supply side were sending but not receiving. And they were broadcasting without listening. And I found that, okay, so it's a lot about communicating the message and making it all palatable for the marketplace, but it's also about the message in the communication. And I thought, well, that's maybe a little bit more interesting. But again, it tended to go and work around this whole issue of persuasion rather than actually listening and communicating properly. It was all one way. So it became very much about the message. And that was translated by the receiver into, we just don't care. You're telling us too much, too often. Usually you're letting us down, over-promising and under-delivering. So, again, going back to the textbooks and trying to find some kind of way forward and looking at definitions as perhaps the best way to start, and dutifully taking up my postgraduate diploma in international marketing, I thought, well, let's look at the definitions and find out what we can do with it. And most definitions in marketing start with customer need, matching customer need with company resources at a profit, by and large, is I think Kotler's definition. It's been broadened out since then, and rightly so. But there was no need definition process in all of this. There was plenty about how to use matrices, and there was plenty about how to put lipstick on the pig, to jazz things up, branding, etc., etc. But there was no need definition process. There wasn't a process I could follow like there is with BS 5750, ISO 9000, all these quality standards. There was no standard for a marketer to go out and find out what the customer wanted. But surely marketing should be more about the customer. And I thought, well, that's the best place to start. But unfortunately, then it got very, very dangerous and difficult because in the 2000s, I started to work with the Chartered Institute of Marketing. I was the chair of the technology group. And we started to look effectively at what could be done to use technologies and make things a little bit more scientific. And unfortunately, it didn't get any easier again because we had a whole load of complexity just dropped on us because not just from data scientists, from IT people, etc., etc. You've got to watch what you say about these things because you don't know who's in your audience. But certainly, we were not our own best friends as marketers because we actually relegated and abdicated responsibility for marketing to IT and other systems, therefore almost dehumanizing it. And in doing so, we found that we created this huge, false, complex world about it, and even more BS. And of course, we found the preponderance of more TLAs, more three-letter acronyms, which is a TLA, of course, itself, and more paradigms and more flying up the flags and all these kind of things, and using a hell of a lot of words that nobody else understood. And by and large, we didn't understand because we made them up half the time. And then data, data, data. Our old friend, we now have digital everything, and now we have more measurements and more metrics than ever. So we measure everything. And I love this word. It's a fantastic word that came up. And I can't remember who's, I think I actually know, I think it's Rory Sutherland, the Ogilvy Group. He's certainly the first person I had using the term measurebation, and we're all into it because ultimately we still can't do that ROI thing, which is, well, we're spending some money, how much money do we need, where's it spent, and how much is best spent in a particular area. So we just measure everywhere in the glib hope that we'll actually find something. And I thought about this, we could actually call it these dashboards that come up that we're all loving now, these days because there's so much information, as an activitometer. It's a very hard word to say. And the definition of that is a device which measures the level of activity within a system, usually allied to the use of excessive noise in and interruption of the market. And secondly, it's the ultimate must-have gadget for complete immersive measuration. So, that was bad enough. I came to, this is a shameless plug for my book now, of course, which was published last year, and it's available in all best bookshops, is the Marketing Manifesto. I had frankly had enough of all of this as a quasi-scientist coming into something that was more of an art than a science, which is not a bad thing because it does need creativity and art. So I set about writing this book, and I found out that not only were there problems in all sorts of ways that we had to contend with so much in our professional lives, but we also had the 17 Ps. We used to have the 4 Ps, the place, price, promotion, and product. But now we found we had 24, and I managed to get them down for the CIM's technology group down to only 17. And I think they still hold pretty good, although somebody tried to squeeze them up again, but I resisted all of that. So we had more options. We had certainly more product service options over the last couple of decades. We've got 3-letter acronyms galore, and you get one new every day. And try and actually come out with something new and not have a TLA. It's really, really hard. So I thought we can't start out with this premise that we can leave it to chance, and we can't keep having BS as the thing which is our first tenet in marketing. So we're kind of almost regressing a little. I thought, well, here we go, we've got this complexity, we've now got products and services which give choice more than ever before, both as a supplier and also as a customer, yet we're just making the marketplace a little bit more noisy, to say the least. And of course then, there's things like these are econometric models that come along. And quite frankly, if you have something such as the estimation of unconstrained demand from airline bookings as a huge, big, complex equation, one small little bit of deviation in all of that can set the whole thing to null. I mean, it can make it null and void. So, same with the likes of simpler things on the face of it, lifetime value. And as for the third equation there, don't ask, it's just too complex. But again, just another example of measuration. Now, there's profoundly some errors in all of this. And we found that noise or activity, increasing noise, increasing your activity, increasing your touch points, increasing the way you browbeat the customer in the market into submission, whether that is to get a sale off them or just a bit of interest, it doesn't equal more money. More noise, more activity does not equal more money. Likewise, gaining knowledge all over the place. We're now able to secure more knowledge from third-party sources, from secondary sources, from primary sources. We can grab information off the internet, we can get data, we can buy data, we can get reports from Gartner, Forrester, etc., etc., etc. We can get all of this, but we still are not very much forward to actually addressing the question of ROI. And likewise, having more options for a product or service, your marketing mix, as it were, just having more of those options doesn't make you or I more engaging. So, we come to start looking at something that was a wee bit more interesting, because I thought, again, this thing of customer need. Now, we all talk about it, but the strange thing is, again, apart from most of us not having any formal processes to look at customer need, we kind of take that as a given that we kind of know something about it. And by and large, companies and individuals within companies do, but they don't have it on a day-to-day basis. A quick litmus test is how many meetings does one have in a company internally compared to externally? And I think further up the chain, that becomes more of a problem. So we started to look at this and try to get some kind of quasi-science round about it in terms of what we could do as a profession. So we put customer need into the equation. So knowledge and customer need gave us implied ROI. We thought the more knowledge we had, the more knowledge we had specifically about some customer needs, by and large, we get a better return on investment for our marketing and campaigning activities. So, only last year, thanks to the guys up at the Institute for Informatics and Digital Innovation at Napier, we firmly ensconced ourselves up there, and I was joined by Craig Coburn and Callum Alexander, IT and data scientists, and we formed Torchbearer up at the campus up there. We've got some other partners on board, including Brand Quarterly, which is a quarterly branding magazine, as the name suggests. And we set about actually trying to define a way forward. And this is our maxim now. The single best way to improve ROI, to restrict the noise, to make money, to make our marketing work, and to match this with needs and wants, real needs and wants, was to get the offer right first time. Now that's ultimately what we wanted to do. I'm not saying we're there yet, but we're well on the way. And cheekily, we've got a little, and we think a better equation here, which is knowledge in the form of relevancy and unique selling propositions or unique selling points, equates to an increased amount of marketing effectiveness over a defined customer need. Now, the astute amongst you will notice in that equation, if you do reduce the customer need to zero, i.e. you don't know their needs, then that becomes infinite and your marketing effectiveness is fantastic and your ROI is tremendous, that it's infinite. But obviously what we're trying to say and suggest in this equation is that we want to increase the effectiveness of marketing, which is specifically something we're looking at right now, and a better defined need would be close to 1, rather than having an ethereal need and just doing the usual, which is just kind of hoovering up needs from the market. So the first element that we're trying to look at within the project based up at Napier is to increase marketing effectiveness, and we're getting a black box and a process to do that right now. The second one we want to look at is this whole area of customer need, because there must be a better way of defining customer needs than just going to them with a clipboard and doing a bit of marketing research and saying, hell, this is what we make, do you want it? Okay, you don't, can change the colour then. You know, it's got to be a little bit more complex than that. I know I'm being a little bit unfair to the complexity of the marketing profession, but by and large, we've still not come along that much since the very early days. And thirdly, we'll be looking at the whole question of how this all equates to what we should be measuring as opposed to what we are measuring currently, and how we can actually develop a better USP, which will give us this increased return on investment. So here's an example. That equation was, in the grandiose sense, was showing what we're trying to do with the profession, if you like, and certainly what we're doing in productizing up at Napier. But here's an example. This is the Frank Davis Fish Company. This is a simple mail shot being sent out. Now, there's a number of variables within this mail shot. You can have an image. You can have some information at the top right of your letter. There'll be a salutation of some description. There'll be a headline or a hook. I forgive the pun, I didn't see that. Oh, hook, fish, never mind. You can have keyword or keywords within the text. You can have an offer explicitly mentioning what the offer is. You can have a call to action, so they will be asked to do something. And you'll have a sign-off. Yours faithfully, thanks, whatever. Now that's 8 factors in that simple letter, and 3 options for each of those, say you've got 3 options, because you probably wouldn't want to think about any others. So you could have 3 headlines, 3 salutations, 3 keywords, whatever. Now, by and large, we normally sit around the board, work all this out, use wholly subjective feelings and gut feel and all the rest of it and emotive things, and we'd come up with some kind of mix, our preferred mix for the mail shot. We'd send it out, we'd see how it went, then we'd send out another one, see how it went, and that would, give us a fair indication as to what the best mail out was. But because there's 24 variables and all that, we don't know what the best and optimum mix of that was, and we certainly don't know what would have worked had we had an infinite number of direct mail shots. But of course we don't have that. We're trying to get this ROI thing. And if we went to the financial director and asked for an infinite amount of money, we know that's not an ROI argument. So just for this simple example, for 8 factors, 3 options in that mail shot would be over 3,000. So you would actually have to send out sizable campaigns 3,000 times to get enough information. And that's assuming you could aggregate all that, crunch it, and bring it out in some sort of usable form that would give you the optimum 8. And that's just silly. 3,000 would be too costly, it'd take you too long, you'd really hack off your marketplace. And by the time you'd sent out your 50th or whatever, then things would have changed, competitors would have reacted, the market would have wanted something else. So We're working right now on bringing that down by at least a factor of 100. So we're looking at very, very much less activity to get the same kind of answers. We're not there yet, but we're getting there very, very quickly. So this is how, if you like, our new abridged or modified sales funnel looks like from a marketer's point of view, or could look like from a marketer's point of view. There's many, many activities and things we can do with the marketplace, and there's many, many different product options. And bringing that down the funnel, we can try and categorize those down to the marketing mix, the mix that we're happy with, which describes all the elements of the proposition, not just the product or service, but the whole thing, including our branding, etc. Then we can funnel that down to the campaign mix, ultimately to get this refined down to the best offer. Now, right now, we're working on the campaign mix and the technologies and the processes around that, and we'll be extending back up the cone or back up the funnel. But we're looking to deliver right first time. So I'd like to finish by just looking back again at the simplicity that I found in my simple mind when I went to marketing, and how we should really revisit that. It's back to the future or back to basics or something. Because people buy for people, we've forgotten about that. We've put press 1, press 2 between us and customers. We've got too complex. We've forgotten it was all about authenticity. And above all, trust, because you can't be trusted if you're not that authentic. So it seems authenticity seems to be the word of the age anyway. Interact with the marketplace in such a way that we're actually showing that we care. Not just we say we care, we don't have the customer as king posters up there, but we've actually got a process that shows that we evidently do care. And go back to the needs, wants, and purpose, and value, true value as described by the customer. And again, this is why we're really wanting to look at having a proper standardized process that people can use to find and define customer needs. So we have to realize that we have to get back to marketing and markets being human again, and we have to do things right first time. The alternative is putting lipstick on the pig forever, and I for one, I'm not going to do that, and our team up at Napier are certainly going to make sure that we will stop doing that, and we don't want one-way communication anymore. This is the market I looked at when I first came to marketing. I thought it was all nice and rosy, all warm, all virtuous, and found that it wasn't. I'd really like to get that back again. And I'd like to make sure that the marketing profession, marketers themselves, companies where marketers are based, and the customer gets it right first time. Thank you.